Welcome to Talk of the Town Live. I'm your host, David Frankel. With me tonight as co-host is Rory Schuler, editor of the Winchester Star.
Good evening,
Once
Dave.
again, good evening, Rory. Always good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Also co-hosting tonight is Kim Whitaker, who will only come on in the second half of the program because she is involved in the Jason Lewis campaign, and it wouldn't be right for her to be interviewing. And we have here tonight Brian O'Connor. The format of the show tonight, I want to point out, it involves live call-ins by phone or email questions. What you do is you dial 781-721-2050. I'll repeat that, 781-721-2050. Hopefully that's up on the screen, is it? Do we have a graphic? So if we slip that up, that will help. Oh, there's a phone call already. And then the alternative is you can email at TOTT for Talk of the Town at wincam.org, TOTT@wincam.org, and we welcome questions, and I'm sure Brian would welcome questions in the course of this interview. Brian O'Connor is running for the Middlesex seat vacated by Paul Casey, and we interviewed Brian a few weeks ago when he was running unopposed in the primaries as a Republican. Now the final stage of the contest has reduced the field to Brian, Jason Lewis, the Democratic candidate, and Chad Riley, the independent, who claims he would have run as a Democrat if he had only known Paul Casey would withdraw from the race. Welcome back to the show, Brian.
Welcome. Thank you very much. Glad to be here with both you guys again.
Thank you. Always good to see you.
Different circumstances, but...
Yes, well today the market rout has punctuated a week of rout, I guess several weeks of rout, and I think everybody's probably extraordinarily concerned about their own fiscal health and the country's at this point.
Well, that's one of the, that's interesting you said that. Almost dropped like 700 points today, and we were talking before the show, you and I and Rory, about it. But, one of the things, I'm sorry for putting a competitive newspaper on the show here, but back on July 20th, to get a shot of that, I ran on the economy. I kind of said that the real issue facing the U.S. is going to be jobs, the economy, and the oil crisis was a tip back in July, but now the banks got into the fray and subprime lending. So it's no surprise to me, and Massachusetts is going to feel the weight of this crunch pretty heavily in the next couple of months.
So what are we going to do? Are we going to spend our way out of this, or are we going to accelerate the contraction? For example, the proposition on the ballot about state income tax. Where do you stand on that? I got a Mal piece during the week with a pleading to, for God's sake, don't cut the income tax because you're going to create an absolute fiscal catastrophe. Where do you come down on the vote? Because that's one vote that you'd have to cast were you to join the state.
That's one of Rory's questions this week in his article.
I guess we're all going to be asked to cast that vote at the ballot box at the same time.
I think one of the things is that you take a look at when I joined the selectmen in 2004. I think you were there. In fact, you interviewed me on your show back
the override,
back in the day on the override. We didn't kill the override, and basically. I went against that override because I looked at the numbers, and they were trying to spend their way out of that particular problem. And after that, I went in as a selectman, and back in '04, I checked recently, free cash in Winchester was a little like $1.8 million, okay? And by having a balanced budget and working with the rest of the selectmen, which this town is very fortunate over the years to have very good selectmen, we now have free cash almost $6 million in Winchester. We're one of the top 5 communities in the state. Where, as Rory knows and you know, we're
when you say free cash, there's positive beyond expenses?
I always love that term. Maybe if you could define that for...
Free cash is cash that you have in reserve, that you put in reserves. It sits there in your general fund for a year and could come out after a year in a form. But a lot of towns are not in that position. And the reason we're in that position is because the selectmen, myself included, really try to balance the budget. And we also protected our schools and we protected our seniors. We had one override during that period, and that was for Hamilton Farm, and $1 million override for the schools, and another $400,000 for municipal. So over that period of time, we were able to maintain the schools' integrity and keep the taxes down to help the seniors, because as you know, over 60% of the town of Winchester is, the own homes are over 60 years old. Large senior population, myself included,
Yes,
in
I
that,
just
in that
joined
statistic.
the ranks of that myself.
Right,
Really?
Yeah.
right. So you're in that boat too. So it is a very, it is a very sensitive issue, and I don't think we can spend our way out of this. All right. In fact, the opposite is going to be true. The governor, Deval Patrick, has hired over 2,000 new employees. Okay, and he's got the last report I saw on Tuesday night, it's $1 billion in the hole in the budget. That's including the $450 million they spent on rainy day fund. So, when
What did he hire those for, by the way?
Say again?
What's the composition of the hiring?
It really is across the board, and I just got the raw number of 1,800 to 2,000 people. But
Like more police and more, that's...
you don't know. But the point is that if you're $1 billion over budget, you got to make cuts. The cuts are going to come across the board, and usually cuts means, you think you're cutting fat, but you also cut revenue too. So cuts are very dangerous. So.
I noticed in one of the advocacy letters in the paper today, actually in the Winchester Star today, that they were pointing out that your experience and is obviously what you're running on as being an elected official, but also that you would be a well-heard voice in the State House. I have a little trouble.
We have that letter here if Jen would
that?
like to go to the web.
Yeah, I read that through, and I wonder how, when you've got an all-Democratic Congress, or all-Democratic State House and a Democratic governor, how on earth a relatively small minority representation gets any voice at all? What would you do to get that voice actually heard?
That's the ironic part of the system in the state of Massachusetts, or democracy in the United States. The Republican Party must be, as a minority party, must sit on, there are about 30 boards or committees, and you have to have a minority position. The two candidates I'm running against probably won't see any of those committees for about 5 or 6 years, because there's so many Democrats. There's 141 Democratic state representatives, only 19 Republicans. So if I'm elected for Stoneham and Winchester, the irony of the whole thing is that I will be on those boards as a minority voice. But as I did in Winchester, I will speak up. I will challenge why we didn't do certain things, why we're only doing partial cures, like the flagman is only 10% of the entire budget. Why we're not doing more? I'll give you an example, if I could. All right. October of last year, there was a bill sponsored by Republicans in the Senate, and it was lottery money. It was $450 million that could come back to the states, and it was voted down on party lines. Okay, Winchester would have got about $600,000, $700,000. Stoneham would have got about $1.2 million in funding last year. That money's now gone because they wanted to put it back into the general fund. That's the things, when you have such an imbalance, okay, of Democrats to Republicans, within your own country.
Sure.
You don't have a debate. Senator DeMacy, he doesn't even have to talk to, he could talk to the top 100 Democrats and get what he wants done. Doesn't he have to talk to the other 40?
That is usually, well, in relation to that, you're running as a Republican.
Right.
I was curious to understand why you wouldn't identify that on the signage you got there. That big sign outside Stop and Shop has no identification. In fact, the McCain campaign seems to have no identification with the Republican Party on its signage, and it seems like the party is almost trying to run against itself, unhappen its
And it sounds like
image.
in this case, being a Republican in Massachusetts could be
there's
an
the
asset,
sign.
especially here in town.
If you put it back
Yeah,
up.
can we go back to that shot? You see, notice
There's
that,
my McCain sticker there.
yeah, McCain, no sign of Republican Party.
Well,
Yet my point about the Republican Party is you are the nominee. He is the nominee. McCain is the nominee of the Republican Party. Karl Rove's operatives are still running his campaign, not his original campaign staff. And yet they're running away from and trying to unbrand themselves because the brand has gotten so tainted. So
I think that
there seems to be something,
No.
a curious dissonance to that.
All politics is local, David. Okay, we know that. Okay, I've been a representative here, selectman, a very outspoken Republican in the selectman meeting room, and pose well.
Speaking as a Republican.
As a Republican. Okay.
Do they finance you, by the way? Do you get?
They help. They help us with information and.
Did they help you with actual funds to?
Yep.
How much of your funding comes directly from the party?
None. How much is my funding comes? It's hard to describe because what they give us is information and identifying voters and where to go and where to walk and
So
so on
data
and so forth.
mining.
Yeah, it saves us a lot of money and a lot of time. So when you talk an actual money, they'll give it to us at the end of the campaign, which is coming up in a couple of weeks. But the money in real dollars they've given us it's insurmountable amount of money. But I want to get back to your question. I'm running as a leader in Stoneham and Winchester, okay? I vote at that table as a selectman for the people, all right? I don't vote as a Republican, I don't vote as a Democrat, I vote what I think's right for the people. And I got a pretty good track record in this town of, even though killing an override that was gonna hurt the schools, I voted for every program that needed extra funding for the schools, like extra Chapter 70 money, overrides, whatever. And a lot of
Did you
those,
ever consider running as an independent? Instead, if the Republican Party is kind of a peripheral.
if I finish my point, and then I'll get to that.
Yeah.
So a lot of times it was a 3-2 vote. So I was a swing guy for the schools. And I'm proud of that. And I was one of the first guys to go down to Stanford Children downtown with Carol Savage and others. So, I believe in what's right for the people. Now, have I ever thought about running independent? I have voted Republican pretty much all my life. In the article I said I voted for Nixon on Hill 10 in Vietnam because he had a plan to get everybody home. So he was my kind of guy, okay? But
It wasn't much of a plan.
it wasn't much of a plan, but it was my only
He
hope
invaded
to get,
Cambodia in secret. And
it was my only
killed a
hope
lot
to
of
get off
people.
Hill 10. So,
Yeah.
so I voted for
I
him.
can understand that. That I can relate to.
Okay.
That's a bad place to be.
So my point is, you are what you are, and you should stand up for what you are. I'm proud to be a Republican. I think there's some values that they have that I share, and
What about what they've done this last 8 years, though? 'Cause surely you can't identify with everything that
I
George Bush has done.
I don't go blindly into the
What did you
chamber.
particularly not like about what they did?
Can we simplify the question and just
Please.
maybe ask it very simply? When you were designing your signs or deciding on the design that your signage would have, what was the reasoning behind not putting the word Republican on those signs?
Okay, there were two reasons. I live in Winchester, and I want a big word, Stoneham, and I didn't want any more blue and white signs. So my colors are yellow and green. That's all I focused on. I am a person who
So it's a
votes.
graphic design issue.
Yeah, graphic design issue, and I vote. It might be a big thing for you guys, you two guys, to think, gee, Republican's not on there. It's not a big thing for me because I vote.
Let's look at the other ones to see how they identify, just for a comparison.
I've been looking at
because
political signs
McCain.
my entire life.
Yeah.
It seems to be a new trend. It's surely not just Brian's signs. But
No, I mean, it's McCain's too.
Yes,
But there's Riley, he's running as independent, so that's understandable. And then the
Jason Lewis one?
Jason Lewis one, let's have a look at that.
Well,
I believe it is got a Democratic
It does.
Party ID on it. It's not a close
I could
enough
say
one.
one thing, being in marketing all my life, I'll give you a criticism. I know you have somebody coming from there. I don't think he should put Jason up as big as he can and should put Lewis bigger than Jason, but that's, I could be critical,
From a
but
graphic
this,
design, yeah, so.
this
But he does
issue-
at least identify his party.
well, congratulations. All right.
Well, it's
I think it's more important that the people of Stoneham know that the people of Winchester the three candidates for Winchester are going to represent them fairly in their community. They're very nervous about that, okay? They, you know, when I knock on doors these days, as you know, people are telling me they're not opening their 401k envelopes. They're just leaving them. They want to see the numbers. The U.S., not even with today, lost over $2 trillion in 401k money.
Yeah, I know, it's actually a scary time.
Iceland, as you know, I mentioned today, the dollar collapse in Iceland and the government. And that's one of the most liberal countries in all of Europe, as you know, okay?
Yeah.
So we got to be this is very nervous time for everybody, and you need leadership, okay? Now I'm running on my fact that I run major corporations, billion-dollar operations with 400
This was for
million.
Polaroid?
Yeah.
Which part of Polaroid did you run?
I ran worldwide sales and marketing for them. Okay.
Was this for their film products? Or
Everything, all
everything, really?
Yeah, it was all under one hat.
What years were you there?
I was there. I started in Polaroid as 1972, and I left when I came back from Singapore in 1998. I went from a sales rep to vice president of worldwide sales.
Literally straight back from Vietnam.
Was it the digital camera that killed the corporation? Or?
Digital technology.
Yeah.
They didn't recognize the impact of digital photography.
So there surely is a piece of Americana, I think, that people miss. You know? I know you're not supposed to shake the Polaroid picture, but you know
well, they don't even manufacture the film anymore. They stopped manufacturing the film. So
yeah, that must have been a distressing thing to go through because I remember that it was very good in the electron microscopy. Anywhere where you needed an instant image in medicine and so forth, that was the way to get it.
Well, I think one of the things that I emphasize back to the letter is that you know, I travel the world and fortunate to have been in your fair city many times. One of my favorite around the world. And I think right now with the other two candidates, I really believe that this is no time to do OJT, on-the-job training, okay? And I think that I pointed out the being on a lot of committees as a minority to represent Stoneham and Winchester and get the message out, especially during these difficult times. And I have handled billions of dollars in budgets and have worked 4 years as a selectman and worked on a lot of projects, including Hamilton Farm, and as Rory knows, a lot of big projects have happened over the last 4 years. And Winchester is in a better spot. Now Stoneham has their own set of things to do, and I think I can help there in the leadership way.
I think that, I think you have a good point with Chad Riley. I think if you read my column today,
I did.
I really do think that the technology savvy, business savvy people are what we need, not lots of lawyers who, and nothing against lawyers, I just don't think they're trained to make those kinds of decisions. Certainly Jason Lewis, I think, is very qualified also from that point of view, in that he's worked into successful software startups. He's with McKinsey. It's certainly, they work at a very high level in a lot of major corporations.
We use McKinsey at Polaroid quite extensively.
They're a good outfit, and a couple of degrees from Harvard. He's got to be at least in the same caliber of skills. He's younger, obviously, so he's obviously got less.
He's a younger person, but we have political differences, as you described him as a progressive Democrat, and a progressive Democrat, quote, means more taxes, okay? I'm telling you what it is, and he is more liberal. And this day and age, I think you really need, as I said, the people are frightened. They're concerned.
He's a tax and spend Democrat. Unfortunately, the Republican
Party. I saw your article today, so I don't want to get into it.
The Republican Party has been
I think everybody
fiscally more reckless than I think I've seen any party in my life.
I think that...
Maybe not you. I'm not accusing you.
No,
but the party you belong to.
I told you our record in Winchester. Everybody in Winchester should be proud of the job that all the selectmen and all the people in the town have done, including the school committee, the finance committee, capital planning. They have really done a marvelous volunteer job to keep the town the way it is.
I would like to ask you, Brian, about future aspirations.
Sure.
You're currently a selectman. You're running for state representative. If you are elected, do you have any idea how long you may want to serve? And at any point, do you think you may try to seek higher office, say congressman from the state of Massachusetts? so
One-
that maybe you can play a bigger role in this national crisis. Hopefully by that time it'll be wound down. But
Right. And one of your questions is that will appear in your paper that you asked us to figure out.
maybe if we could go to the web at some point too, and we could pitch this and get back to your question. This week I did send out a questionnaire. It's, I believe, 7 different questions, but 15 parts of each question. Each candidate has received it. All 3 of the state rep candidates. They've been asked to return those questionnaires by Monday, and the results will be in next week's paper. But we cover a lot of the issues just to let the candidates, in their own words, describe exactly how they stand on some very important issues that are very centered on both Winchester and Stoneham. A few do stray into Massachusetts politics, but if we can get back to your aspirations.
Running out of time here, but I think it is a very good question, okay? And I'm going to answer it in the paper, but I'll answer it live, so you got a scoop here, okay?
Thank you.
I was very annoyed at the last session of the state legislature, especially against Senator DeMacy, the way he ignored the governor and did programs on his own, and it's just chaotic. I mean, it's just, when you got 140 to 19, there is no debate, all right? So I really got angry and said, there's about as much as I can do here as a selectman. I'm going to run for state rep to give the people a voice down there. Somebody's got to say something. Your columns are a voice, and so on and so forth. So that's why I'm running. I intend to stay there at least 3 terms. I have no aspirations like everybody else says. I did my time in the corporate world. I've done very well. I'm very satisfied. Been married same woman for 41 years. I don't think I'm going to have dramatic changes in my life going forward, but I think there are windows you have in your life. There are windows you can make a difference, and I think I noticed that I had a window here, and I think this Senate and this town, especially Stoneham, needs a little leadership, needs somebody down there with a little clout, and they don't feel they got the representation. Paul Casey, as good as he was knocked off a lot of committees by DeMacy. He was a Finneran guy, off he went, and Stoneham went straight down.
He was very good on the taxation committee, I have to say.
Yeah. The only reason Winchester held its own was because of Senator Jalen was active and so on and so forth. So that's why I ran. And to your point, that'll be my answer in your paper. It's a window. I've gotten a lot given to me in my life, been very successful. I'm going to give back, just like I did as a selectman. Not always right, but I have a vision of what to work with people and change my views.
Well, I have one bone to pick with you.
Good. I got one for you.
Good. I'm
Okay.
ready to receive as well as give.
Okay.
You raised a fairness issue with the selectmen, and
Right.
I think you probably had them engage their legal counsel
Right.
to check on it. One question I'd have is, it seemed to me that it was raising the belief that there was a fairness doctrine. In fact, as I pointed out in my correspondence, there is no such thing because of the Republican Party vehemently opposed having one, destroyed the one that we did have, and as a result we have Rush Limbaugh, we have Fox News Channel, which are garbage propaganda channels, quite frankly.
MSNBC.
And so the question is,
there's a question.
why did you spend, and are you aware of what you spent on that
Sure.
legal counsel?
Okay.
How much did that cost?
First of all, David, before I ask you my question, I
Yes,
know that
and you're welcome to.
you're a big Jason Lewis fan, and you're a big supporter of the Democratic Party and so on, and it's a fair
That's
question.
true. I'm
I literally get hundreds of calls from people during the course of the year, and I get less than the other selectmen. I get calls about Sunken Holland Road. I get calls about Winning Farms. I get calls about Hamilton Farm. I'm the guy who climbs over fences and goes down ditches and goes into the thing to investigate. I brought it to the board. I walked in and said to the board, I got a few issues here. They voted. I don't have that. I'm 20% of the selectmen. I'm 1 of 5. They voted 5-0, including some Jason Lewis supporters, to take a look at it. It took like 90 seconds to come up with the answer to your point. I interviewed with Rory's reporter at the scene. I wasn't too thrilled with Rory's headline. I thought the column was very accurate, but the headline was a little over the top. But Rory's got to sell
I think the headline was Brian O'Connor threatens WinCam.
Yeah, I didn't threaten WinCam. I brought it to the attention of the selectmen. They voted 5-0.
Brian did say in the meeting, though, that WinCam could lose their license, that they have to be careful. He also said that perhaps
Were you at the
reason,
meeting? Were you at the meeting?
Well, I've
No,
seen
no,
the
hold on.
meeting on tape,
Hold on.
and my reporter was at the meeting. He also said that Dave Frankel may be a Jason Lewis supporter
Right.
because he's from Australia, Jason is from South Africa.
Yes.
If they weren't both white, I'd say that's borderline racism.
No.
If not nationalism at the very least.
If you knew the relationships between South Africa and Australia, you would understand that. But if
But it has nothing to do with why I
David,
supported
David,
it.
to be fair,
Listen.
you said that's a lot of bull, and I never
Yep.
answered you back, okay?
Yep.
South Africa and Australia have an
They
uncommon...
do have a close.
They have an
relationship.
uncommon relationship. And I traveled extensively to Australia and to South Africa, not as much
And
to
that's
South
true,
Africa.
but it is not unrelated to why I
I
was
understand
supportive
that, and
of
that's why I
Jason.
didn't answer your question. Now, I got one question for you.
Yeah, please.
Okay? In one of your columns, and you wrote the piece about, was the surge worth it?
Yes.
Okay? And you went down and you described George Bush's role, and then you went to
A balance sheet.
a balance sheet. okay?
Cost, benefit.
I was very disturbed that you called the death of a American soldier, a woman or man, a debit. And amputees that come home, double amputees and triple amputees, are debits.
Yes, it is a huge
Fortunate
loss.
nobody else did.
Rory,
Yeah.
can I answer my question? I think you
Yeah.
should apologize for that, because have you
He's
ever...
questioning your patriotism.
No, I'm not questioning your
That's
patriotism.
a pretty
Yeah.
common theme in the Republican
know.
Party, so it might not be on
The
the
reason why
Can I
I brought it
answer
to
the
death is
question?
because it's a huge loss to their family.
No, can I answer the question? Let me finish the
You go-
question.
Okay.
Okay?
Good. Go ahead.
Have you ever seen or put somebody in a body bag? Have you ever written a letter to a mother to tell them why their son died? And to describe him as a debit is I couldn't believe I was reading the word. These parents lost their child, okay? And you describing it as a debit was the worst thing I think I've ever read.
I read that same line, Dave. My impression was that it was a negative. A debit is a negative.
Yeah, it is.
If-
Exactly.
This is the problem with this whole discussion on the surge, is the fact that who cares if the surge worked? Why are
Well,
we
we're-
paying
I'm just
Iraq
saying
in
need
the
a
first
surge.
place?
Exactly.
Too bad George Bush didn't look at all the lives that were going to be lost as debits. Too bad George Bush didn't look at all the lives that were lost on September 11th and didn't put all the full resources into Afghanistan and instead distracted us for so many reasons.
But
the-
I
you
As we
think
go
debit
down
is-
this walk, I think you have to answer a lot of those questions.
Rory-
Yeah.
Rory,
Should we
it's
be
a
in Iraq right now, Brian?
Tremendous
Hold on for a
loss.
second.
That's a question.
Hold on.
The debit means loss. You know, it's that you take something
It's
out
a-
of the account, it's a debit. We have lost the flower of our youth, and I don't even talk about the 4,000 that are dead. I'm talking about the 30, 40,000
I've
that are
seen
injured,
them. I've
and
seen
the
them.
hundreds of thousands that are suffering from post-traumatic distress
I've
disorder.
seen them.
So yes,
Hundreds
well,
of thousands of Iraqis.
it is the Republican Party and George Bush in particular,
I think
and
that,
a
I think
pathetic,
I think
a
Senator-
pathetic Democratic Party
I think
that
Senator
went along
Kerry,
with this, quite
I think
frankly.
Senator Kerry and a lot of Democrats voted for the
That's
law.
right, and
But
damn
that's not the
them
issue.
in hell for it, quite
That's
frankly.
not the issue. The issue, and Rory interrupted, was I think you should apologize for using the word debit.
No, I
And that's
no
not a question,
apology.
just, you know, you
No apology
insisted
offered.
you were going to ask a question,
I think it's been a shocking loss to the company, to the country, and it's a disgusting piece of behaviour, criminal in my view.
Well, that's your view.
Yes, I'm just
That's
giving
your
you.
view.
I'm giving you.
I understand. I
I'm
think
very
that
passionate about it.
I think these young men on the ground, okay. And one year I was a young man on the ground, and I know their camaraderie, okay. And I wouldn't want to be where they were, and to have a parent pick up a paper and see that their son or daughter was a debit is not the way you treat people.
I think that these
That's
parents
a
would
complete
identify it as a
misrepresentation
loss
of the use of
themselves.
the word in the article. It was describing on the debit side, what did we
You could've
lose
you could've used
versus
a kind
what did we gain? And quite frankly, the people that gained in this were a very narrow group of people who are very wealthy and very greedy,
And
who
they're
this
both Democrats
administration
and they're
serves.
both Republicans. You know the guy who really suffers in that? You know, it's...
The poor guys, the poor families
No, it's easy
in
to
the
die.
military.
It's very easy to die. It's hard to live, okay? And the parents and the wives and the children and all those are the people that suffer. The ones who remember the people who died.
That's right.
That's the
That's
people
right.
that suffer. And I just, you know...
That is exactly right.
You know, and Rory asked, you know, should you be in Iraq, should you not? It doesn't matter once you're on the ground.
Yes, it
okay?
does matter. I'm sorry.
It doesn't
I'm sorry.
matter.
We went back to Nuremberg, right? And we hung those Nazis because they had a war of aggression. This was a war of aggression.
There's
These
something-
guys
there's-
lied through their freaking teeth to get us into a war for reasons other than what they stated because they knew that there weren't any WMD.
Let me ask you a
They're
question.
damn war criminals.
Well,
let me say this, though, because
I
I've
do with
listened
war
and
criminals,
advised.
quite frankly,
war
for the chances
criminals,
to hang them.
you know, subprime
Indeed.
lend, the AIG people are war criminals. People lost
Well, that's a
trillions
little
of dollars.
different. That's a different kind of criminality. That's a
I don't see any
criminals are
blood on
criminals.
their
That's
hands.
a financial
criminal- a
victim.
criminal's a
Well, no, I
criminal.
think,
Except
I
for
think
maybe
violence.
few
Violence
people
is
who
a
have-
special kind of criminality.
Okay, you know,
No, it's see
you
the
know,
thing is you try to
you're
narrow it down to anybody
vehement.
who feels this way, who wants to question your patriotism. How about the patriotism? I lost one of my closest college friends on 9/11 in the North Tower of the World Trade Center. I am mad as hell that nobody is going after them with the full force that they went into Iraq. How much more do we spend in Iraq? Far more in Iraq.
Hey,
Far
Rory.
more in Iraq than we have in Afghanistan. Afghanistan has been the second thought of this administration. And if you know what, you can accuse Dave all you want for him calling it debits. If anybody insulted the families of servicemen, it's the people who started this war in Iraq. And you know, that's
Rory,
one of the
you're making a
subjects
speech
I
right
feel
now.
is very
Okay.
good.
Used
Oh,
a lot.
what have you been doing? You know, you're accusing him for
Listen.
using one word in a column that was, you know, it is a loss. A debit is a loss.
Rory,
It's a definition of a word,
can I-
Brian. You're
can I
trying
an-
to question someone's patriotism, which makes me sick, and I'm just not going to sit here and take it.
I'll make you more than sick, okay?
Go for
My
it.
point is,
Won't
I
be the
lost
first
my
time.
godson in the Twin Towers, okay?
Then
He was
you
going to
should
be
feel
married
stronger
in
about
2
this.
weeks,
Then
all
what-
right?
then you should feel strongly about being in Iraq.
Don't interrupt me.
You've been interrupting me the
Don't
whole time.
interrupt me, all right? That's what you shouldn't do. This is a tandem. You guys play. That's fine. I'm a Republican.
brought it
I don't tell me about friends. I'll tell you about my godson that
brought
died in
it
that thing. Okay. So don't you be telling me about who did what to who and who started the war. People are dying, and you should have respect for them. These kids are
You're
in
not
these
trying to make
battles.
the
not a
right
lack
to the
of
Twin
respect,
Towers?
though.
Give me a break.
What?
That same rubbish has been peddled by Bush and particularly Cheney.
You got a real
Saying it's a
problem with
debit
the
has
whole thing.
nothing
That's
to do
fine.
with
You could write your
Sure.
articles. I'm worried about what's happening in these towns here, okay?
Well-
I'm worrying about what's
don't
happening.
understand.
okay?
If I'm mistaken, you brought it up.
Right. You,
Period.
what?
You brought it up.
I asked him a question.
Yeah.
That wasn't a question. You said, I think you should apologize.
That's right.
That has a period at the end. Question marks have question marks at
Right.
the end.
Well, I think
Your
you should-
voice should have gone on up
So
at the end of that
I'm
question.
afraid we've passed the end of our 30 minutes, and it's been a lively 30 minutes.
shocker.
And it's a very passionate
I think
discussion.
Rory, one of the things Rory should do is not, you know, he should be more upfront about his political stance. You are. I give you credit for that.
Hey,
Rory-
I'm an
Rory-
unenrolled voter, Brian O'Connor. You know, here, now let's lay it on the table. I'm an unenrolled voter. I don't vote consistently Republican or Democrat. When it comes to the Iraq War, I have very strong feelings when it comes to 9/11 and the lack of attention to the war in Afghanistan, which is really where our efforts should have been, instead of getting distracted in Iraq. And I get mad when I hear people questioning other people's patriotism,
No.
especially over an issue like that, because patriotism does
I
not
didn't
belong to
question his
Republicans.
patriotism, I questioned his common
You
sense.
did. You said he should apologize to the families, as if David
did.
doesn't feel for all the people
I don't
who
know
were
if he
lost in
did.
this war.
Somebody who writes a column and uses
You
the word
told him
government.
he should apologize.
I did.
You didn't ask him if he thought he should apologize.
Rory,
You
you're
told him he
you're
should
so
apologize.
off base and so apologetic, it's disgusting. So,
I'm not
I
apologizing.
think we're
for
going to go
anything.
to a station break,
right.
and thank Brian for
Thank you very
appearing.
much. And
And good luck with the election.
thank you very much.
Take
And,
care.
we'll
I'll
talk to
still
you
shake
soon.
your hand.
That'd be good. Interesting.
Hi, WinCam. My civic organization is having an event tomorrow. Can you send a staff member over to tape it?
Well, my Rotary Club is holding a special program this week, and we'd really love it if you could come down and cover it.
Here at WinCam, We get phone calls such as these every day. Unfortunately, our staff cannot cover every event. I'd like to take this opportunity to tell you or your organization how you can create your own public service announcement, cover your own event, or produce your own television show. All you need to do is have someone from your organization attend a producer's class where they'll learn everything necessary to create and produce a professional TV show. And that's what community television is all about. For more information on how to become a WinCam producer, call me, Don Cronin, at 781-721-2050, or email me at dcronin@wincam.org.
Hi, my name is Anthony, a senior at Winchester High School. With me are Hervey and Manny, both juniors at Winchester High. Winchester A Better Chance was founded 34 years ago. It continues through the financial generosity of the people of Winchester.
We'd also like to thank the host families who have opened up their homes to us over the years, the ABC Board, the resident directors, and the teachers and administrators at Winchester High School.
We would also like to thank our friends and fellow students at Winchester High School. We are grateful for all your support. Thank you.
Can I smoke?
Welcome back and welcome to our co-host Kim Whitaker. Good evening, Kim.
Good evening.
It's so good to see
wow.
you.
Wow. This is a hot seat, man.
That's right. Fox News Channel, eat your heart out.
They got nothing on you guys.
Well. Yeah, funny. There was some balance in our cable news networks that called the administration for what they damn well are.
It's nice to hear at least two sides of an argument. Mm-hmm. You know, it was an argument perhaps, but at least there were two sides being debated. So
that's true. That's true. And unfortunately, Fox News Channel and Rush Limbaugh, it's entirely one-sided.
MSNBC too, though. I mean, MSNBC is almost embarrassingly liberal, especially lately. I think that they'd be taken more seriously if only they walked the middle of the road a little more. But
I don't know that Chris Matthews is all that.
No, I don't think everybody on it. You got to look at the general spirit of a network. You can't nail it down.
I think he's more of a pit bull without lipstick.
Yeah, Chris Matthews, tends to, I think, usually go pretty middle of the road. I think in this particular election, he's probably more in the Obama camp. Mm-hmm. But I think he can be equally critical of Democrats. Clearly Keith Olbermann is a pal of progressives and tends to, highlight that viewpoint. And Rachel Maddow, I think, is a fantastic addition to that lineup, though. She's been terrific and extremely knowledgeable woman. A Rhodes Scholar, I believe.
Really? And since I don't have cable, maybe I shouldn't really discuss cable news too much.
Well, I get to see it when I'm on the road. Since we don't have cable TV at home, I take it in.
You don't even have a television, right?
No.
Can't even watch this show?
No. Well, no, I do watch the show, but not at home. So, Kim,
yes.
You're very involved in the Obama campaign.
Yes.
What's going on? There must be a shift in the sentiment after the poll numbers of the last, couple of weeks now, isn't it? The
polls are looking good right now. The battleground state polls are looking great. National polls are looking great. I think it's just kind of in the DNA of Democrats, though, to never feel positive or optimistic until the polls close and the results are in, because the only one that counts is the one on election day.
Yes. And but things are so volatile.
It's and there are game changers that come up. What's 25 days is a long time in a political campaign. I think that Obama has done amazingly well in the debates. I think John McCain in the last debate, the town hall debate, which was supposedly his strong forum, I thought he looked very weak, actually.
That was a snoozer of a debate, though, I gotta say.
Yeah, I did actually fall. I was very exhausted.
Stayed up way later than I probably should have to try to watch it. And as far as I felt, both sides just read off their scripts too heartily. Neither of them spoke from their heart as the way they should. Yes. I felt that either one of them probably had the opportunity to change the game in that debate, and both of them failed. Then again, it was a very stagnant sort of atmosphere. The crowd themselves were told to wipe the expressions from their faces, which makes it difficult.
Which kind of makes it an untown.
It was,
it's kind of silly.
Yeah,
the people sitting on those kind of bleacher-styled seats a couple of them looked like they were going to doze off, actually. And I think that they did make it a little too kind of, unengaged, and it was a little placid. I think that in that kind of a forum, the exchange is just by virtue of the atmosphere is a little bit tempered, and people were wondering, was McCain going to go after Obama the way Sarah Palin has been doing out on the stump? And clearly, I didn't expect that was going to happen. And I thought Obama had some good, sharp exchanges with McCain, particularly when McCain came after him about, being a little bit naive and mentioning that, he may be going into Pakistan and that you don't show your hand on foreign policy.
I mean, either he didn't know there were WMD, and he's supposed to be this very senior expert on foreign policy. Well, why didn't he know there wasn't? Or he did know and he was complicit in a criminal act. Either way, it doesn't, for all of his supposed experience, he presided over the worst possible decision I think in the history of this country.
Right. And he's spoken recklessly since then.
Yes.
And Barack brought up a couple of good points
the
about
war in
that.
Georgia, and he's fanning
and the bomb Iran, and the next up
Iran.
Baghdad, and all of the kind of swagger that we've seen a lot of with the Bush administration. And I think people are looking for a different kind of leadership.
Yes.
And I think Barack, does exude this kind of, confidence and, the lack of drama in his campaign, as everybody who's been associated with his campaign will tell you that, he's called No Drama Obama, and he doesn't like that kind of high wire stuff happening. And he tells people when they're coming in to join the campaign, I've talked to a few people who are actually full-time staffers, who say that, he insists that people work out their problems in the office between themselves and that nothing goes outside that way, because he feels it's a distraction and it's inappropriate.
It's a strong leader.
So he's run
leader.
a fantastic campaign, and I think, I think he will do that kind of job as our next president, and I'm just hoping that he gets that opportunity and that the country gets the opportunity.
Well, according to Ken Warren, who was Dick Kephardt's pollster, he said if at this stage you're ahead by this kind of margin, there's only been 2 elections in the history of polling where the person didn't win. One of them was the obvious one, the Truman election, and I think maybe the other one was the Kerry election.
I think it's just way too early, though, to call that. I mean, look at the fluctuation in the polls over the weeks preceding the Sarah Palin announcement. Look at the fluctuation of the polls and all the way back. It's a swinging pendulum. It's who knows what could happen. But what do you think of the Ayers coverage, the connection of Obama to the Weather Underground mastermind, domestic terrorist? Both asking what do you think about the fact that loose connection exists, but what do you think of not only the use of the McCain-Palin ticket, of bringing that out, but the media coverage of that? I mean, it's no secret that when something gets pitched like that by a campaign, when it gets picked up by the media, it snowballs a bit.
It's back to guilt by remote association, in my view. It's like, either he really was a major instrument of it and has continued through his adult life to do this, or he isn't. You can go back through McCain's connections, the New York Times 15,000-word essay on his roots in gambling that haven't stopped. He has comprehensively got himself involved in lobbying for them. He's comprehensively shown in this article to be on gambling binges.
I think I said to you that if I saw McCain was a poker aficionado, spent a lot of time in the poker room at Foxwoods, I think I would. That would shore up my vote for McCain. I consider myself, pretty close to the fence. It's a little too late in the game to claim I'm undecided, but if he was a man who played the men at the table, could read their expressions, didn't risk his money on the house. I don't know, I just look at anybody who plays blackjack, slots, roulette, that playing against the house, you're always going to lose.
He's a hot-headed gambler.
Seems dangerous,
quite
as far
frankly.
as politics.
You look at his behavior, he's a typical fighter jockey, actually.
Right.
They are pretty wild guys, actually.
Well, I think probably a lot of fighters and pilots probably have to keep their cool, just to keep their planes in the air. But,
Yeah, I find McCain's temperament,
react.
frankly, to be very disturbing.
It's well documented that
It's well documented that he has a hair trigger temper, that he can be incredibly nasty. He seems to be running his campaign in
instead
a
of no
fashion
drama
that's uneven.
Obama, it's all
it's
drama.
high drama,
All
McCain.
drama
I mean,
McCain.
he tries to grab the upper hand by doing things that are unexpected and dramatic and turn out to be reckless, whether it's supposedly suspending his campaign, which he never really did
Yeah, which
anyway,
is
or the pick of Sarah Palin, which for me, if all other things were equal between Barack Obama and John McCain, the pick of Sarah Palin as McCain's VP would be,
Completely reckless.
it would be a non-starter for me.
Yeah.
Even if I were 2 feet in the McCain camp, I no more think that woman is ready for the VP job, frankly, than I am, and I might be more ready for it than she is.
I would think so, actually.
I mean, you can't take away, they say, oh well, she did such a great job at the debate. Well, she's good at cramming for a test.
Yeah.
And I think
It
anyone
wasn't a
who
debate
was
anyhow. It wasn't a
a
parallel
debate.
talking points.
and
There was no
Gwen
engagement.
Ifill sat
Another
there and let her
disappointing
dodge
debate,
questions.
though.
It was very disappointing.
And to tell you the truth, I was incredibly disappointed in Joe Biden. Joe Biden is a fellow Pennsylvania native, as I am. I actually, just before one of my very last assignments, before I left Pennsylvania, was to cover a Democratic fundraising dinner where Joe Biden was to speak. Fortunately, he canceled at the last minute, never did get to meet him. I don't know. I expected some fireworks from that side. I thought that was his chance, but then again, he was walking that tightrope where he couldn't come off as being too harsh. I wondered, Kim, if you had an opinion. There's this double standard. When Hillary Clinton was running through the primary, a lot of time, a lot of feminist activists, they shouted sexism when various things were covered in a certain way. You hear that, but from conservative women's movements now, in response to the way Sarah Palin's been treated, I see pretty much anybody who's running for vice president or president needs to understand that they're about to be attacked from every angle and probably constantly, and every moment of their life is going to get put out there. But how do you feel about that feminist tightrope? Or just being fair as far as gender is concerned?
I mean, I thought it was a ridiculous assumption that the media perpetuated that Joe Biden somehow had to be careful debating Sarah Palin. No one was careful debating Hillary Clinton, and I actually went to a luncheon with Senator Biden last month in Boston, and I shook his hand after the luncheon, and I said to him, gloves off. Do not treat Sarah Palin any differently than you would treat any other debate partner. Hillary never asked for special treatment. She never got any. She never needed any. Yeah. The fact that the media was saying, oh, Joe Biden needs to be careful because he can't look like he's attacking her or being pedantic, or I said, why? Why should he be any different debating her? I am absolutely not in the camp that thinks that men need to treat women differently in a debate setting. When you're in the political arena, you are standing on equal ground, and you deserve to be held accountable for all of your policy ideas.
I'm actually surprised that I haven't heard more people accusing Joe Biden of sexism because he kept the kick gloves on.
Kind of the reverse thing, yeah.
To me,
Karl Rove would say spin it either way.
He was coached to be too careful, and I think he was holding back, and he was being gracious and perhaps a little gallant, and looking at her almost amusingly. And I thought, oh my God, he could rip into her if he wanted to, and even correct several factual misstatements that she made. But again, I think he was a little nervous about coming off in any way, and this goes to the news cycle that we're in, with the press picking up and harping on this, Biden was disrespectful to Sarah Palin. And even when she came out and shook his hand at the beginning and said, can I call you Joe? Yes. I thought that was meant to disarm him a little bit, and maybe for him to then start calling her Sarah. Yeah. And then the campaign could have jumped on that. Yeah. So, these guys are on this stage, and they're under a microscope, and they are picked apart for every little thing. And that's why I think you get politicians that, that they're holding back, and they don't want to take a risk because they need to play it safe. Yeah. And it's unfortunate because I don't think it does the voter a service, because, I think that we're not out there. They're not out there really fully expressing their ideas with passion. because they
The word
need to be
passion is
careful.
what's missing. It becomes milquetoast, and they don't really deal with the most difficult issues with the passionators. I mean, even Obama, I think, basically pulls his punches. He reminds me of Muhammad Ali without the knuckle. Beautiful jabs, lovely movement in the ring.
I think he has to stop saying look. Look.
Throw that right cross that
The look thing, and, you know, picking it up. Before I saw the Saturday Night Live skits, I'm always watching, as many people are. Actually, I've heard the words, trying to figure out how they were going to pick up on Obama's mannerisms. And you know, it's that one word, look. If he stops saying that before everything, it seems a little patronizing, you know, almost as if people aren't listening. People are hanging on his words. I don't think he needs to enunciate. Maybe his coaches need to train him that way a little bit.
Yeah,
it's a tick.
You know, again, you know, we're doing the same thing. You know, we can pick these guys apart, whether it's John McCain saying "my friends." The other thing that I have to,
that was starting to get on my nerves as well.
That gets on my nerves a lot. That, you know, that to me feels that does feel a little bit patronizing. But here's what I thought was interesting at the debate the other night that I haven't really seen too many people comment on. At the end of the debate, John and Cindy McCain came out, and you know, Michelle and Barack Obama were there, and Cindy McCain and John McCain worked the crowd for like 2 or 3 minutes and then left. Barack Obama and Michelle stayed out there for 45 minutes and shook every single person's hand in that you know, circle. And they posed for pictures, they chatted with people. Barack shook every hand in that room. John McCain was nowhere to be found. And a lot of networks that were covering it with the pundits were running this feed in the background, and there was Barack getting hugs and kisses, photographs, autographs. And I thought, was this a missed opportunity? This made John and Cindy McCain look like they were not with the people. They were just completely out of there as soon as, you know, as soon as they needed to leave, that they were gone. And I thought it was a huge mistake on the part of the McCain campaign. And frankly, I'm surprised no one's picked up on it.
If anything, I thought though that Senator McCain did look a little tired, maybe a little bit frazzled, a little more worn than I'd seen him. But you know, we keep hearing about John McCain's temper. I got to tell you, I've never heard anybody debate in a more calmly subdued voice than the one John McCain uses when he's debating. And I'm trying to figure out whether or not that's a counter-anchor ploy, you know.
They've got him on Thorazine. Well, you know, he's obviously, you just see him, he grits his teeth. He is not playing himself.
I think he's
with Bob Dole too. Bob Dole was a much funnier, much more interesting man than he was on the campaign trail. He was stiff, wooden, unfunny. But you get him extemporaneously, the guy's actually incredibly entertaining, a little acerbic, but actually quite fun.
Right.
No, if John McCain broke out of his show, he'd have my vote, to tell you the truth. I mean, I'd love to vote for a man with that experience that has gone against you know, his party the way he has on the issues that he has, or at least certain issues. There was a breaking point where it changed. Well, I heard an interesting argument, you know, and I'm trying to reconcile
to the devil.
Whether or not, if he gets elected, he's going to sort of revert back to who he wants to be. I mean, he's been elected. Is he going to be overly concerned with getting a second term? But then again, you have to wonder, is somebody's willing to drop their true principles to get elected, then, you know, is that somebody you
Who's
want
his
to elect in the
staff?
first
I mean, look
place?
at his campaign staff.
I think it's a tough call.
He ditched his campaign staff, and Karl Rove's staff are all around him. Do you really think they're going to let him govern? I mean, he didn't even get to choose his vice president. That was not his choice. Right. At all. This was not his
I don't
gamble.
like the way they're running the campaign, and I think now it's getting especially dangerous at some of the Sarah Palin's rallies.
It's inflammatory.
Where she's whipping people up with this Bill Ayers thing, making these accusations about terrorism, that Barack is somehow this scary, suspicious man who may be this ultimate Manchurian candidate, that when he gets in there, he's going to be controlled by, you know, Muslim forces, who were his donors. And you have people in the crowd now yelling, kill him, off with his head,
kidding?
treason. I saw videotape last night from a rally in Strongville, Ohio, and the people who were going in there and the things they were saying about Obama is scary to me. I mean, his life has already been threatened. And if something happens to him as a result of this very right-wing crowd being whipped up into a frenzy, I think that the McCain campaign bears some responsibility.
Yeah.
They are taking this too far.
Well, we'd end up with President Biden, which is certainly not my first preference, but the two words that should strike fear into everybody's heart is President Palin.
Yeah,
I mean,
President
that would
Palin
be
is
a
a
catastrophe.
very scary
I
proposition.
mean, if George W. Bush is a catastrophe, I don't know how you double catastrophe, but Sarah Palin would be an absolute disaster.
She is
You know,
just
in terms of
not
comprehensive
ready.
I enjoy
unqualification.
listening to Sarah Palin, and I got to tell you, the only reason, the biggest two reasons why it might scare me some, like you're saying, is just her beliefs on global warming and evolution. To be the governor of Alaska and to not really believe that global warming is man-made, man-caused, that's scary to have
And to
somebody in
say
a
that it
position of
doesn't
power
really
in
matter.
Alaska
Right.
like that. But I don't understand why the Obama camp seems so spineless lately and not going after that. I mean,
I don't
and
understand
number
that
one,
either,
Palin's
actually.
name did not come up once. Neither did McCain's choice of Palin in that last debate. Why is Obama sitting on that? That should be his trump card. I think, honestly, the Obama
think they're trying
campaign
to
may
ignore
be
it.
guilty of sexism just because they are being so laid back and, I don't know.
But you know what? Here's the way I think.
They're all going after him.
But here's
rather
the way
than-
I think they're playing that. They don't need to go after her. She's hanging herself pretty good.
Yeah,
When you
that's a
have
good point.
when you have an interview like the one she gave with Katie Couric, you don't need to do anything. You just need to sit back and let that fire burn.
Let her keep digging.
Because she's taken herself into a big hole, and it's much more effective when she does it.
Yes,
Because
that's
the
true.
charges of them being nasty or going after her or possibly turning
I
off
think
some
that's my
women by
point, though. I mean, the options aren't go after Sarah Palin or don't. It's go after Sarah Palin or go after McCain for the choice of Sarah
Yes.
Palin.
They
I think
have.
that's-
Which I think is black
the
and
judgment
white,
has been
stark
raised.
difference.
I think the surrogates have raised the question about McCain's judgment. I think that's on the table. His judgment about a lot of things, including this VP pick, which was clearly political and not putting country first. And to say that that the nastiness on both sides has been equally charged, I think is just so much baloney. John McCain's campaign has been 10 times nastier than Obama's, and Obama wouldn't have gone down the nasty road had McCain not started it, and most recently with this charge with Bill Ayers, which is a ridiculous, guilt by association connection of something that happened when Barack was 8 years old.
Let's come back in just the last couple of minutes we've got to the local campaign. I know Jason Lewis has come under a great deal of attack, and he wrote a long piece again in the Winchester Star. For all of you who read your Winchester Star today, you'll see Jason give a spirited rebuttal of those arguments. Do you want to give a quick summary, since you are involved in the campaign?
Let me point out too, there's an inside political section in this week's paper that also runs two fairly lengthy endorsement press releases from, not word for word, but from the Riley camp and from the Lewis camp. Maybe use the same point size headline. Try to make them as even as possible.
I saw that.
But there's a real
Coverage is
back
good.
and forth, and today I was let in on an email exchange between the two candidates that they're having some heated debate between themselves about personal attacks and who's making them and whether or not they're fair.
Yeah, it's a good read. I mean, I think the coverage, I have to say, the coverage of the campaign's been very good, very fair, very comprehensive, and I think we'll see a result that reflects that.
I just want to make one point on that, and Rory, I know that local newspapers are very short-staffed, and sometimes you guys do have to run press releases that are somewhat verbatim or not necessarily vetted or fully fact-checked. But I'm wondering if the paper could perhaps, when you do run a press release, just put something on the top that might say, this was a press release submitted by the campaign, the facts haven't been verified by the Winchester Star.
Well, as far as the facts, there were some facts that were a little bit trickier, but, everything is, according to the Riley campaign, according to the game.
I'm not sure that readers always know that. And the same thing for Jason's press
evenly gets to
releases.
take his hits in both his his very lengthy letter
Right.
that we ran, as well as the press release that's running right next to it. We are actually working on a story for next week looking into the funding of all the campaigns.
Oh,
So
that'll be
all the
good.
facts
I
will
look forward
come
to seeing
out.
that.
You know, I didn't see any stark facts that anybody's really disagreeing upon. It's more so the interpretation of percentages, the amount of fundraising that's coming from inside the district and outside the district, and you know, it depends which numbers you're using.
Then we
but
have to wrap.
They're all pretty close.
But thank you again. Look, once again, the